The Price of Endless Pursuit. A tale as old as time, yet as relevant today as it ever was. In a land of rolling hills and ancient forests, there lived a wise elder known as Master Elias. For decades he had wandered from village to village, sharing wisdom and teaching the virtues of simplicity, patience, and inner peace. His teachings were revered across the kingdom, and many traveled great distances just to hear him speak. Despite his profound knowledge and spiritual enlightenment, Master Elias harbored one persistent desire: a place to call his own, a humble abode where he could establish a permanent school of wisdom. "If only I had a small plot of land," he would often muse while gazing at the stars that served as his ceiling each night. "I could build a simple ashram and teach without the constant burden of travel." One crisp autumn morning, as Master Elias sat beneath an ancient oak tree, sharing his teachings with a small gathering of villagers, a merchant approached him after the session. The merchant, having traveled extensively throughout the kingdom, spoke of King Adrian, a ruler whose generosity had become legendary. "Master Elias," the merchant said, his eyes bright with excitement, "King Adrian is known to grant wishes to those who approach him with sincere hearts. Many have received land, gold, and resources beyond their expectations. Perhaps he would grant you the land you seek for your ashram." The sage's heart quickened at these words. Could this be the answer to his long-held dream? After years of wandering, could he finally establish a permanent sanctuary of learning? "How far is the king's palace?" Master Elias inquired, his voice betraying a hint of eagerness that surprised even himself. 3 days' journey to the east," replied the merchant. "The king holds audience every full moon. The next is but a week away." With gratitude in his heart, Master Elias gathered his few possessions: a wooden staff, a small pouch of herbs, and the simple white robe he wore, and set off toward the royal palace. As he walked, he contemplated what he would ask of the king. Just a small piece of land, he thought. Enough for a modest hut, and perhaps a garden where students could gather. The journey was arduous but filled with beauty. Master Elias passed through verdant valleys, crossed clear running streams, and traversed dense forests. Along the way, he helped those he encountered, offering healing herbs to a sick child, mediating a dispute between farmers, and sharing his wisdom with all who would listen. On the morning of the full moon, Master Elias arrived at the royal palace. Its towering spires and gleaming white walls stood in stark contrast to the simple villages he had frequented throughout his life. A long line of petitioners stretched from the palace gates, farmers seeking relief from taxes, merchants requesting trading rights, nobles pursuing royal favors. Master Elias took his place at the end of the line, his weathered hands grasping his wooden staff, his eyes taking in the grandeur around him. As the hours passed, he observed those who emerged from their audience with the king. Most wore expressions of joy and gratitude, some clutching scrolls of land grants, others bearing pouches heavy with gold coins, and still others simply radiating relief and happiness. The king must truly be as generous as they say, Master Elias thought, his anticipation growing. By late afternoon, Master Elias finally entered the throne room. It was a vast chamber, adorned with tapestries depicting the kingdom's history. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the marble floor. And there, seated upon a throne of gold and ivory, was King Adrian himself. The king was younger than Master Elias had expected, perhaps in his mid-40s, with a strong build, intelligent eyes, and a neatly trimmed beard. His golden robe shimmered in the light, and his jeweled crown caught the sun's rays, creating a halo-like effect around his head. "Welcome, wise one," King Adrian's voice echoed through the chamber. "Your reputation precedes you. Many in my kingdom speak of the sage who travels without possessions yet carries the wealth of wisdom. What brings you to my court?" Master Elias bowed deeply, his white robe brushing against the polished floor. "Your Majesty, I come with a humble request. For many years I have wandered your beautiful kingdom, sharing what little wisdom I possess. Now, I seek a small piece of land where I might build a modest ashram, a place of learning and reflection for those who seek spiritual guidance." King Adrian leaned forward, his interest piqued. "And how much land would satisfy your needs, Master Elias?" The question caught the sage off guard. He had thought only of some land, not a specific amount. As he stood before the king, surrounded by opulence and power, his modest vision began to expand. "Well," Master Elias began, his voice hesitant, "perhaps an acre would suffice for a small hut and garden." But even as he spoke these words, a new thought entered his mind. If the king was truly as generous as his reputation suggested, why limit himself? An acre was modest indeed, but 2 acres would allow for a larger garden. perhaps even a small orchard. And if 2, why not 5? With 5 acres, he could build multiple structures, dormitories for students who travel from afar, a larger teaching hall, perhaps even a small library. The king observed the internal struggle playing out on the sage's face and smiled knowingly. He had seen this transformation countless times before, the shift from humble need to expanding desire. "I see you are uncertain," King Adrian said, rising from his throne. "Let me propose a solution that has served well in similar situations. At dawn tomorrow, you will begin walking from the palace gates. You may choose any direction. The land you cover by foot until sunset will be yours, provided you return to the palace gates before the sun disappears completely below the horizon. If you fail to return in time, you will receive nothing. Does this arrangement please you?" Master Elias's eyes widened. This was far more generous than he had anticipated. With a full day of walking, he could claim enough land for not just an ashram, but an entire spiritual community. "Your Majesty is most generous," Master Elias said, bowing deeply once more. "I accept your terms with profound gratitude." "Excellent," the king replied. "2 of my royal horsemen will accompany you to mark your path and ensure your safety. Rest well tonight, for tomorrow will require all your strength." That night, in a comfortable chamber provided by the king, Master Elias found sleep elusive. His mind raced with possibilities. How far could he walk in a day? How much land could he claim? Should he follow the river to ensure water access? Or perhaps head toward the forests for building materials? The modest vision of a simple hut had expanded into dreams of a vast spiritual center, the largest the kingdom had ever seen. "I must be strategic," he whispered to himself in the darkness. "This is an opportunity that will never come again." Dawn broke with a symphony of birdsong. Master Elias, who had finally fallen into a fitful sleep just hours before, awoke with a start. He dressed quickly in his white robe, grasped his wooden staff, and made his way to the palace gates where King Adrian and a small entourage awaited. "Remember," the king said, his voice solemn, "all the land you encircle by sunset will be yours, but only if you return before the sun fully sets. My horsemen will follow and mark your path." Master Elias nodded, his eyes already scanning the horizon, calculating distances and directions. With a deep breath, he stepped through the gates and began walking eastward toward the rising sun. At first, he maintained a measured pace, his staff striking the ground rhythmically. The land here was fertile and flat, perfect for cultivation. He envisioned fields of grain, vegetable gardens, perhaps even a small vineyard. The 2 royal horsemen followed at a respectful distance, occasionally making marks on a map they carried. As the morning progressed, Master Elias increased his pace. The more land he covered, the more his vision expanded. No longer was he thinking of a simple ashram. Now he imagined a sprawling complex, a center of learning that would attract seekers from across the kingdom and beyond. By midday, he had covered an impressive distance. The sun beat down mercilessly, and sweat soaked his white robe. One of the horsemen rode up alongside him, offering a water skin. "Master Elias, you should rest and drink," the horseman urged. "The day is only half done, and you've already claimed more land than most would need in a lifetime." But the sage barely paused to take a few hasty gulps. "There is still much daylight left," he replied, wiping his brow. "I must continue." And continue he did, pushing himself harder as the afternoon wore on. He came upon a beautiful lake, its waters crystal clear and teeming with fish. "This must be part of my claim," he thought. And rather than continuing in a straight line, he diverted his path to kill the entire lake, a decision that added considerable distance to his journey. Beyond the lake lay a small forest. Timber for building, Master Elias muttered to himself, altering his course once more to include these valuable resources. His legs ached. His breath came in ragged gasps, but still, he pressed on. The horsemen exchanged worried glances. "Master Elias," one called out, "the sun begins its descent. We should turn back toward the palace." But the sage had spotted a hill in the distance. "From that vantage point I can see even more land to claim," he thought, ignoring the horseman's warning. By the time he reached the hill and surveyed the vast expanse he had covered, the sun hung low in the western sky, casting long shadows across the landscape. With a jolt of panic, Master Elias realized how far he had strayed from the palace. "I must return now," he gasped, turning abruptly and beginning to run. His elderly legs, already pushed beyond their limits, protested with each step. His heart pounded painfully in his chest, and his vision began to blur. The horsemen galloped alongside him, their faces etched with concern. "Master Elias, please slow down. Your health is at risk." But the sage was consumed by a singular thought. He must reach the palace gates before sunset, or all would be lost. The land, the ashram, the spiritual center, everything depended on his return. As the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and red, the palace came into view. Master Elias summoned his last reserves of strength, his legs moving mechanically, his lungs burning with each labored breath. The palace gates were now visible, with King Adrian and his courtiers gathered, watching his approach. Just a little further, just a few more steps. The sun slipped lower, half hidden now behind the distant mountains. Master Elias's vision darkened at the edges. His heart felt as though it might burst from his chest. With one final, desperate surge, he staggered through the palace gates and collapsed at the king's feet. "I made it," he gasped, his voice barely audible. King Adrian knelt beside the fallen sage, genuine concern in his eyes. "Yes, Master Elias, you have returned in time. All the land you covered today is now yours." But Master Elias did not hear these words. His eyes stared unseeing at the darkening sky, his chest no longer rising and falling with breath. In his relentless pursuit of more, he had pushed his mortal body beyond its limits. The king bowed his head in sorrow. "Prepare a proper burial," he commanded his servants, "and mark the grave with these words. Here lies a man who discovered too late that the land he needed was merely enough to cover his body." The story of Master Elias spread throughout the kingdom. A powerful parable about the dangers of unchecked desire and the true meaning of enough. Many who heard it reflected on their own pursuits and the prices they were willing to pay. For what does it profit a person to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or in Master Elias's case, their very life? This ancient tale resonates deeply in our modern world, where the pursuit of more wealth, more status, more possessions often comes at the expense of our health, relationships, and inner peace. Like Master Elias, we begin with modest desires that gradually expand, pushing us to run faster, work longer, and sacrifice more on the altar of acquisition. The tragedy lies not in wanting to improve our circumstances, but in the inability to recognize when we have enough. Master Elias didn't need vast estates, he needed only enough land for a simple ashram. Yet when presented with the opportunity for more, he couldn't resist the temptation to maximize his gain, even at the cost of his life. How many of us are caught in similar patterns? Working 60-hour weeks for promotions we don't need to buy things that don't fulfill us. Sacrificing precious time with loved ones to chase accolades that ultimately ring hollow. Postponing joy and contentment for some future moment when we'll finally have enough. A moment that perpetually recedes like the horizon as we approach it. The wisdom of this parable invites us to pause and reflect. What is our true enough? What are the genuine needs that once met would allow us to live with purpose and contentment? And what prices are we paying? In stress, in health, in relationships, for the endless pursuit of more. Perhaps the most profound teaching of Master Elias's story is that contentment is not found in accumulation but in appreciation. The sage already possessed what many spend lifetimes seeking: wisdom, purpose, respect, and the ability to positively impact others. Yet he remained blind to these treasures, fixated instead on what he lacked. In our own lives, the antidote to insatiable desire may be gratitude, the conscious recognition and appreciation of what we already have. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition or settling for less than we deserve. Rather, it means pursuing our goals with awareness, balance, and a clear understanding of the true costs involved. The land that Master Elias needed in the end was merely enough to cover his body, a stark reminder of the ultimate futility of excessive material pursuit. None of us will take our accumulations with us when we depart this world. What remains is the impact we've had, the love we've shared, and the wisdom we've gained and passed on. As you reflect on this ancient tale, consider your own journey. Are you, like Master Elias, running yourself ragged in pursuit of more? Or have you found that sweet spot of enough, that place of balance where needs are met, purpose is fulfilled, and life can be savored rather than merely survived? The choice, as always, remains yours. But remember the fate of the sage who, in his quest to gain the world, lost everything that truly mattered. The price of endless pursuit is often paid in the currency of life itself. Choose wisely what you chase, and more importantly, know when to stop running and start living.